Mazes and Monsters is one of the most bizarre TV movies ever made, and it features Tom Hanks in his first starring role, playing a college student who loses his grip on reality while playing a Dungeons and Dragons style game. Released in 1982, during the height of satanic panic fears about role-playing games, this made-for-TV movie tried to convince America that fantasy gaming was genuinely dangerous. But behind the unintentional comedy and anti-gaming hysteria lies a fascinating time capsule of 1980s moral panic, early Tom Hanks' brilliance, and surprisingly committed performances. Here are 12 wild facts about Mazes and Monsters that'll make you appreciate this cult oddity. 1. This was Tom Hanks' first leading role after Bosom Buddies, and he's openly admitted he's embarrassed by it. Yet despite the ridiculous premise, Hanks delivers a genuinely committed dramatic performance that hints at the acting range that would make him a legend. Hanks later joked that Mazes and Monsters was his anti-drug PSA, except the drug was dice and character sheets. But watch his breakdown scenes. He's actually trying to make this absurd material work. You can see flashes of the emotional depth he'd end up bringing to Philadelphia and Forrest Gump. Even in terrible material, real talent shows through. 2. Mazes and Monsters was created during the height of satanic panic, when religious groups and concerned parents genuinely believed Dungeons and Dragons was causing teen deaths and mental illness. The movie was based on a novel inspired by James Dallas Egbert. In 1979, college student James Egbert disappeared in the steam tunnel while dealing with depression. The media blamed D&D, even though the game had nothing to do with his psychological issues. Author Rona Jaffe wrote a sensationalized novel, and CBS rushed this movie into production to capitalize on parental fears. It's propaganda disguised as entertainment. 3. The filmmakers couldn't legally use Dungeons and Dragons, so they created the fictional Mazes and Monsters game, but everything about it, the dice, character creation, dungeon mastering, is transparently D&D with the serial numbers filed off. TSR, the company that owned D&D, would have sued if they'd used the actual name, so they made the thinnest possible knockoff and hoped audiences wouldn't notice. Spoiler, everyone noticed. D&D players found the whole thing hilarious because the game mechanics they show are completely wrong anyway. 4. Beyond Tom Hanks, the cast included several actors who went on to notable careers. Chris Makepeace, Wendy Crewson, and Lloyd Bochner all delivered surprisingly earnest performances in service of this ridiculous script. Everyone in this movie is trying. Nobody's phoning it in or winking at the camera. They're playing it completely straight, which makes the absurd premise even funnier. When Tom Hanks is climbing a skyscraper dressed as a holy man because he thinks it's a tower from his fantasy world, he's giving it Oscar-level commitment. 5. The steam tunnel sequences where the students play their game in real caves were filmed in actual underground tunnels. The production used practical locations to create atmosphere, making these scenes genuinely effective despite the silly premise. Say what you want about the movie's message, but the tunnel scenes are legitimately atmospheric, dark, damp, claustrophobic. They actually capture why underground exploration might appeal to adventure-seeking college students. The cinematography in these sequences is surprisingly good for a TV movie. 6. Wendy Crewson plays Kate, the friend who recognizes something's wrong with Robbie but can't stop his descent. Her performance adds genuine emotional weight to what could have been a one-note character. Crewson treats Kate's concern as real anxiety about mental illness, not just concerned about a game. She's watching someone she cares about have a psychological break, and her helplessness feels authentic. She went on to a long career in film and TV, and you can see why. She elevates everything around her. 7. The climactic scene where Robbie climbs to the top of the World Trade Center thinking he needs to jump to reach his fantasy destination was filmed on location. The Twin Towers footage gives the scene unintended poignancy today. In 1982, this was just a dramatic urban location. Watching it now, the Twin Towers footage creates this weird emotional layer the filmmakers never had intended. The scene is already intense. Tom Hanks is genuinely good in this moment, but the historical context adds something deeper and sadder. 8. While the movie blames the game for Robbie's breakdown, what's actually depicted is untreated mental illness and trauma. Robbie is dealing with his brother's death and using fantasy as an unhealthy escape mechanism, but the movie refuses to acknowledge this. If you ignore the anti-gaming propaganda, this is actually a story about unprocessed grief and schizophrenia onset. Robbie needs therapy, medication, and support, not to stop playing games. The movie accidentally shows that mental health issues existed long before role-playing games, but refuses to acknowledge its own subtext. 9. Lloyd Bochner plays JJ, the Dungeon Master, who organizes the game and gradually realizes his friend isn't playing anymore. He's living it. The character faces a genuine ethical question about when fantasy becomes dangerous. JJ's arc is actually interesting. He has to decide when to intervene in a friend's autonomy because that friend can't recognize his own mental crisis. That's a real dilemma that has nothing to do with gaming and everything to do with mental health intervention. Bochner plays it with appropriate gravity. And speaking about intervention, probably about a year or so after this movie came out, I had a D&D intervention at Thanksgiving. I was really young at the time, but my cousin and my uncle pulled me to the side after we had just started the desserts with pumpkin pie and all the different assortments of desserts were laid out. They said, "Hey, come over here. We want to have a little talk with you." And my cousin started off by saying, "Hey, you know that game you're playing, Dungeons and Dragons? You're playing with the devil's tools." And then my uncle just nodded his head, folded his arms, and said, "You need to stop that. The devil's tools." Seriously, no lie, this was the only intervention I ever experienced in my life, and it was with Dungeons and Dragons. Come on, we're doing nothing like that in our D&D games. Sure, we might have candles on the table, turn out the lights, but no one dressed up or was LARPing around, and we certainly didn't go out into forests or into caves. But seriously, an intervention? Here we go. So this is the closest I get nowadays to D&D. Diablo. I love this game. This is actually Diablo 3. And all the movement happens in real time. It's super easy. You can jump in, jump out of the game super fast. Look for treasure. Throw big spells. Run around and explore. Look at those graphics. Now I understand, the best graphics in the world are in your head. Like with Dungeons and Dragons, it's all imaginary. But look I can stand back. Throw spells. Had this massive attack, literally and I died. But that attack alone in Dungeons and Dragons probably would have taken 45 minutes to an hour. 10. The script is filled with lines that are meant to be dramatic, but land as unintentional comedy. Tom Hanks declaring he's a holy man named Pardue while wearing a homemade costume has become legendary among bad movie fans. The dialogue takes itself so seriously that it loops back around to comedy. Lines like, "I am Pardue, I am a holy man," delivered with complete sincerity, make this required viewing for bad movie nights. But credits to the actors, they commit fully, which is why it's entertaining rather than just unwatchable. 11. As a CBS TV movie, Mazes and Monsters had significant budget constraints and network standards to follow. The production had to create an engaging thriller on a tight schedule and limited resources while adhering to broadcast television restrictions. TV movies in the 80s were churned out quickly and cheaply to fill programming slots. What's remarkable is that this one looks relatively good. The tunnel scenes have atmosphere, the New York location shooting adds production value, and the performances are committed. Within its limitations, it's actually pretty well made. 12. Mazes and Monsters failed to stop the D&D phenomenon. The game only grew more popular after this movie aired. Today, it's beloved by gamers and bad movie fans as a hilarious time capsule of moral panic and early Tom Hanks weirdness. The D&D community embraced this movie ironically. hosting viewing parties and creating drinking games around its most absurd moments. It's a reminder that moral panic movies usually age terribly and end up celebrating the things they tried to demonize. Tom Hanks survived this, went on to become America's dad, and probably wishes we'd all forget mazes and monsters exist. So there you have it, 12 wild facts about mazes and monsters that prove this wasn't just anti-gaming propaganda, it was an accidental comedy featuring future superstars trying their best with impossible material. From satanic panic hysteria to Twin Towers poignancy, every element combines to create something far more interesting than anyone intended. So which fact surprised you most? And here's a fun question for the comments. Have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons or similar games? And did they make you climb any skyscrapers or go into dark tunnels? Let me know your gaming stories. And if you love deep dives into bizarre TV movies and 80s cultural oddities, smash that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. I've got more strange artifacts from the entertainment history coming your way.